Tyler McMillan hadn't seen his property in over a week. That was rare. The land meant everything to him. 5 quiet acres on the edge of Elk Ridge, Montana. A creek ran through the back. He'd planted aspens along the tree line himself. It was the kind of place people dreamed about retiring to. But Tyler was already living it. He'd been up north with his brother, who was recovering from a rough surgery. No reason to think anything back home would go sideways in just 8 days. But the moment his truck crunched onto the gravel of his driveway, something felt wrong. At first he thought it was the light. Then he saw it, a brand new steel fence, fresh, gleaming, and wrong. It cut across the rear section of his land in a straight line, ignoring the natural contours of the trees and the property markers. Worse, it went right through the gravel road. Tyler had personally laid a private access path. He shared with 2 neighboring homeowners for emergencies. He threw the truck into park and marched toward it, boots hitting the earth with rising heat in every step. No warning, no survey stakes, no permission. There were tire tracks, cement dust, a few leftover tools, and zero explanation. Tyler stood with his hands on his hips, staring at the metal posts like they were part of some bad dream. But this was real, and someone had just laid claim to what didn't belong to them. He went straight to the county GIS database on his tablet, zoomed in on his parcel. The fence clearly ran a full 30 feet into his legally documented property line. That's when he noticed something on the far end, a Willowbrook Estates sign, newly mounted onto the fence. A posh little logo beneath it, community proud, resident safe. Tyler's jaw locked. He wasn't part of Willowbrook Estates. His land bordered it, but he'd never joined their HOA, never signed anything, never agreed to their rules. In fact, he'd gone out of his way to avoid buying a home inside their boundaries, and now they'd fenced into his land like it was theirs. The next morning, he walked into the Willowbrook HOA office, just after they opened. It was inside a converted model home at the front of their neighborhood, air freshener masking the staleness of overpriced entitlement. Cheryl Brinkman, the HOA president, greeted him with the kind of smile you only wear when you think you've already won. "Good morning, can I help you? You can tell me why there's a fence on my land," Tyler said, flat and direct. Cheryl blinked. "Oh, that must be part of our new perimeter enhancement project, to improve safety and deter loiterers." The board approved it last month. The contractor said that land wasn't in use. "That unused land is mine," Tyler replied, placing a folded copy of his property survey on the table. "And you built your fence 30 feet into it." Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. If you'll give us time to review your documents, we can know." Tyler stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough. "You don't need time. You need to move that fence now." Cheryl's posture stiffened. "I'm sorry, but this is something we'll need to bring up with legal. You're welcome to submit a written complaint." Tyler nodded once, then turned and walked out. He didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't slam a door. Because Cheryl didn't know what he knew. Tyler wasn't just a homeowner. He was a licensed land surveyor with 10 years of legal mapping under his belt. He had aerial drone footage, city plat records, and a direct line to the county planning commission. They wanted to treat this like a line dispute. He was going to draw a line they couldn't cross, not with threats, but with something far more permanent and profitable. 3 days later, Cheryl Brinkman received a certified letter, the kind you don't ignore. Inside, a formal notice of trespass, detailed with GPS coordinates, time-stamped drone photos, and a demand for removal of all encroachments onto Tyler McMillan's property, effective immediately. It was signed by a local attorney named Morris Rayland, a former military prosecutor turned land use specialist, the same man Tyler used to help rewrite subdivision boundaries for municipalities. Cheryl scoffed when she read it. "He's bluffing," she told her board. "We'll bury him in paperwork before we back down." So, they did nothing. That was the final permission Tyler needed. The very next morning, while the HOA held their weekly community coffee, a flatbed truck rolled up behind Tyler's house. It carried a reinforced steel gate, the kind used on private hunting reserves, heavy mechanized, solar-powered with a camera dome built right in. By sunset, it was mounted across the private road that the fence now funneled all Willowbrook traffic through. A large wooden sign hung on the gate. "Private property. Controlled access. Pass required. Apply online. www.fairpassdrive.com." The HOA board members didn't even notice until one of their residents got stuck at the gate. Cheryl got the first angry call an hour later. They blocked the back exit. Someone shouted, "There's a keypad. It says we need to pay for access. Is this legal?" Cheryl was halfway through writing a furious email to the county when another message came through from the FairPass site. It was a notice to the HOA for access through Mr. McMillan's privately owned road. Your organization may apply for a group license. Monthly rate, $250 per vehicle, payable via digital invoice. Individual residents may apply for daily, weekly, or monthly passes at their own discretion. Gate will remain locked unless access is confirmed. Cheryl's face turned crimson. She marched down to the gate herself, fists clenched, cameras rolling from her phone. Tyler was already standing there, calm as ever, sipping iced tea. "You have no right to restrict our access," she barked, pointing at the gate. Tyler didn't flinch. "You built a fence that funneled all your neighborhood traffic through my land. You didn't ask, you didn't verify. You just assumed. Now you're on my road. That means you pay to use it. That's extortion." "No," he said flatly. "It's a toll. Just like your HOA charges fees for pool access or street parking. Except in my case, the road is mine, and I have legal documentation proving it." She threw her hands up. "We'll sue." He smiled. "Looking forward to it. The court's already reviewing my complaint for trespass and property damage." Cheryl huffed back to her car, tires spinning gravel. But Tyler's camera caught everything. Audio timestamp location. It was already uploading to the FairPass security server. By nightfall, 5 residents had already signed up for monthly passes. A few more applied for weekend-only access. Tyler made $525 in under 24 hours. More than enough to cover the cost of the gate's installation, and the word spread fast. The HOA tried to threaten him again via email. He didn't respond. He forwarded it straight to Morris, who drafted a cease and desist order against any future threats. But the best part, Cheryl had no idea what was coming next. Tyler had filed an official claim with the county to redraw the public easement map and mark that drive as a controlled private passage. The moment it went through, the HOA would have no legal leg to stand on. Tyler McMillan woke to the buzz of his motion alerts. It was 6:12 a.m., still gray outside. He rolled over, opened his security app, and watched as 2 men in neon vests approached his gate with bolt cutters. He smiled. The feed showed them scanning the keypad, scratching their heads, then radioing someone, most likely Cheryl. One of them tugged at the hinges. The other checked the chain lock. They weren't professionals. They were desperate. And Tyler. He was prepared. 30 seconds later, a loud air horn blared from the hidden alarm system. The men jumped back, startled. A loudspeaker kicked in next. "This property is under video surveillance. You are trespassing. Law enforcement has been notified." That was true. Tyler had set the system to auto-dial the sheriff's non-emergency line for all intrusion attempts. The workers scrambled off. The gate held firm by the time Tyler finished his coffee. The first sheriff's deputy was parked by the fence, chatting with the HOA's handyman squad and looking unimpressed. "Deputy." Lyles walked up to Tyler's porch with a small smirk. "Morning. Got another one, huh?" Tyler nodded. "They brought tools this time." "Already got your footage," the deputy said, patting his phone. "County's seen enough of your videos to know you're legit. You want to press charges." Tyler shrugged. "Let's let Cheryl stew a little longer." But Cheryl wasn't stewing. She was spiraling at that week's HOA board meeting, which someone kindly recorded and uploaded online. She ranted about how no outsider can tax our residents for using a road that's been open for 20 years. A quiet voice from the back interrupted. It was Andrew Langston, a longtime Willowbrook resident and retired civil engineer. "Cheryl, that road was never officially part of Willowbrook," he said. "It was a private maintenance path that Mr. McMillan allowed us to use. Out of kindness, you fenced off his land and made it our only exit. And now you're angry he wants compensation." The room turned silent. Cheryl's face flushed. "It's the principle." But residents were done with principles. They were getting tired of being blocked in when they forgot their codes. Tired of calling for access. Tired of Cheryl pretending it wasn't her mess. By the weekend, 10 more households had subscribed to Tyler's FairPass system. At $75 each, he was earning steady revenue. And thanks to a little help from his cousin in IT, the system now offered auto renewals, vehicle license plate recognition, and even a preferred user tier with faster gate response. It was polished. It was legal. And it was making the HOA look like amateurs. Still, Cheryl wasn't done. She returned to Tyler's gate with a clipboard, a local news anchor, and a cameraman. "This is theft by privatization," she shouted into the mic. "This man is holding our neighborhood hostage. We demand the city step in." The cameraman zoomed in on Tyler, who calmly walked out holding 2 folders. He handed one to the reporter, a full legal breakdown of the property boundaries, including drone images and copies of the judge's preliminary approval for controlled access. He handed the other to Cheryl and said nothing. Inside that folder was the new certified county easement update. As of 4 p.m. that day, the dirt road running along the rear of Tyler's land was now formally marked, private access controlled. Owner Tyler McMillan. The city recognized it. The sheriff's office recognized it. Even the planning commission signed off. The look on Cheryl's face. That alone was worth the weeks of frustration. And yet, Tyler wasn't finished. Because part of that new easement grant included exclusive right to lease or license access to neighboring parcels. In other words, if Willowbrook wanted to drive through, they'd need a contract, not just passes, a real deal, signed, ongoing. And with terms Tyler would set, the courtroom smelled like fresh polish and old paperwork. Tyler sat calmly at the plaintiff's table, adjusting his tie as Judge Rosalind Carter entered, a no-nonsense woman with 30 years of land dispute cases under her belt. She took one glance at the stack of filings and sighed. This was going to be messy. Across the aisle sat Cheryl Brinkman, flanked by her HOA attorney, a young, overly confident man who looked like he still practiced arguments in front of a mirror. The lawsuit Cheryl had filed against Tyler was bold, if not reckless. She was accusing him of obstruction, inappropriate toll collection, and causing emotional distress to the residents of Willowbrook. But Tyler wasn't worried. Because what Cheryl didn't know was that he had been preparing for this showdown since the first bolt of that illegal fence had touched his soil. Every permit, every security footage file, every payment record from FairPass, it was organized, time-stamped, and admissible. The judge reviewed both opening statements without much expression. Cheryl's lawyer leaned heavily on emotional arguments, blocked access, inconvenience, and the audacity of monetizing a community's safety. Tyler's lawyer, Morris Rayland, didn't waste time with flair. He calmly walked the judge through the original property plat, the confirmed encroachment, and the fact that the HOA had funneled traffic through land they didn't own. He submitted the certified easement update, the surveyor's report, and a notarized letter from Andrew Langston, the retired engineer and longtime HOA resident, verifying Tyler's historical ownership and generosity. Then Morris dropped the hammer. A large manila folder, handed to the bailiff, contained the original HOA fence proposal. On the first page, Cheryl's digital signature authorizing construction on undeveloped bordering land to the rear. "Your Honor," Morris said with a glance at the judge, "this is proof that the HOA proceeded with full knowledge. They had not confirmed property rights prior to construction. They acted on assumption. And now they're seeking damages from the victim of their mistake." Cheryl whispered frantically to her lawyer, but it was too late. The judge sat back and stared at the ceiling. "Let me get this straight," she said slowly. "The HOA built a fence across Mr. McMillan's land, without permission, redirected their residents' only rear access point through it, and now they're suing him for creating a secure gate on his own property." Morris nodded once. "That's correct, Your Honor." The judge exhaled sharply. "Let me be clear, this court does not exist to clean up after arrogance." A hushed laugh rippled through the back of the courtroom. Cheryl's face flushed. Then came the final blow. Tyler stood, calmly, and submitted a series of FairPass records, showing that not only had the system never denied emergency access, but it had documented 3 cases where Tyler personally led emergency vehicles through without charge. There was even footage of him unlocking the gate in his pajamas at 2:14 a.m. to let a fire truck pass. He looked at the judge and said, "I'm not here to block my neighbors. I just don't want to be walked over by people who think fences give them power." Judge Carter folded her hands. "Thank you, Mr. McMillan. You may sit." The room went silent as she prepared her ruling. "This court finds in favor of the defendant, Mr. McMillan. All claims against him are dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, the HOA is hereby ordered to pay the cost of Mr. McMillan's legal fees, restore the property boundary to its original condition, and formally negotiate an easement license if continued access is desired." Cheryl gasped. But it wasn't over. Additionally, the judge added, I am recommending the HOA board be audited for potential misuse of community funds during this fence project. That one stung. As Cheryl stumbled out of the courtroom, a swarm of local reporters cornered her. She shielded her face, refusing comment. Tyler, on the other hand, gave one cool statement: build a fence on someone else's land, expect to pay rent. Tyler McMillan wasn't petty, he was patient. And as the HOA licked its wounds from court, he knew they'd be back. Because now, every car exiting Willowbrook Estates from the back road was driving through land they no longer had any legal right to access. It took less than a week. On a breezy Monday morning, 3 people showed up on Tyler's porch. Cheryl Brinkman wasn't one of them. She'd stepped down from the board just 2 days after the judge's ruling. In her place stood interim HOA president Marcia Dennison, a nervous but polite woman in her 50s with an overstuffed binder and stress written all over her face. Mr. McMillan, she began. We'd like to discuss a long-term access agreement for the road. Tyler sipped from his mug, watching them sweat in the morning sun. Coffee, he offered, not waiting for a reply before walking inside and leaving the door open. They followed him in. Cautiously, as if the floor might bite. In the living room, Tyler laid out the papers they had brought. Their draft agreement proposed a monthly community fee of $1,000 for unrestricted access, renewable annually. It was clean, formal, legal. And completely unacceptable. Tyler pushed it aside. Nope, Marcia blinked. Is there something wrong? There's a lot wrong, he replied. You built on my land without permission. Took me to court over it, and now you want wholesale access at a discount. He stood, walked over to his bookshelf, and returned with a folder. Inside was his version of the agreement, one he'd been refining for weeks with his lawyer and accountant. The terms were simple and brutal. $350 per registered household per year for access. Liability clause. The HOA was responsible for any damage caused to the drive. Exclusivity, only residents could use the pass. No guests unless paid for individually. Renewal rate, subject to annual increase, tied to inflation and maintenance costs. Marcia's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. That's more than triple what we expected. Tyler leaned back. Calm, as ever. I'm not in the business of being fair anymore. I'm in the business of being thorough. One of the other board members, a guy named Leo who had remained silent until now, leaned in and muttered, Can we negotiate? Tyler's expression didn't shift. You're not negotiating with me. You're negotiating with the market, and you've already shown your cards. They left without signing, but Tyler knew they'd be back, because by Thursday, half the neighborhood's residents were stuck using the narrow, pothole-ridden front road, which added 10 minutes to every commute and turned into a flood zone every time it rained. By Friday night, Tyler's website saw a spike in traffic, 27 new FairPass registrations. Saturday morning, the HOA board was back this time, signatures in hand. Tyler didn't gloat, he didn't even smile. He simply shook their hands, made copies of the signed agreement, and had Morris file it with the county recorder. Just like that, he became the legal tollkeeper of their entire back road. And here's the kicker, with his new revenue stream, Tyler repaved the road, added soft LED lighting, installed speed sensors, and even planted wildflowers along the fence line. Now, it didn't just function better than before, it looked better than any part of the neighborhood. People noticed other nearby HOAs, ones bordering rural access points, started calling. They wanted to know how Tyler built the system. What software he used. Who installed the gate. What kind of legal framework they needed to mirror it. Tyler's cousin, the tech guy who built the original FairPass system. He had just launched a consulting site, rewrote Solutions, and Tyler had a silent stake in it. What started as a headache had turned into a scalable model. One mistake from a smug HOA president had birthed a thriving business. Tyler didn't just defend his land, he monetized it. 3 months after Tyler signed the gate access contract with Willowbrook Estates, FairPass wasn't just a neighborhood tool, it was a blueprint. Tyler's cousin Noah, the tech-savvy web developer behind the pass system, had been working around the clock. They'd taken what was once a scrappy digital paywall and turned it into a full-blown subscription service, scalable, customizable, and ready for licensing. They called it rewrote Solutions, a company that helped private landowners monetize roadways, access trails, shared easements, even shared driveways in suburban sprawl areas. The pitch. If they use your land, they should help maintain it. By spring, they had 5 small contracts with other homeowners in nearby counties. Some were ranchers dealing with constant trespassing. Others were homeowners boxed in by suburban expansion, just like Tyler had been. Noah added tiered features, like plate recognition, emergency override logs, audit trails, and auto-renew invoices. And guess what? Every single time a new system went live, Tyler got a cut. Meanwhile, back at Willowbrook Estates, things weren't going so smooth. The HOA was seeing red, not just from the monthly payouts to Tyler, but from their own residents. The $350 per household was barely manageable, but the optics, brutal. Residents started asking questions. Why did we build a fence in the first place? Why didn't we check who owned the land? Why are we stuck paying this guy instead of fixing our own drainage issues? The board, now led by interim president Marcia Dennison, tried to do damage control, but the more they tried to downplay it, the worse it got. Then the newsletter leak happened. An anonymous board member leaked internal emails, and they spread like wildfire. In them, Cheryl Brinkman was seen mocking Tyler's warnings, calling his land dead space and bragging about fast-tracking the fence project before budget season closed. Worse still, one email confirmed that they had deliberately skipped the land verification survey to avoid delays. The HOA was rocked. At the next meeting, furious residents demanded accountability. One man stood and shouted, "We're paying this guy a toll because you wanted to plant a flag in his yard." Marcia tried to calm the crowd, but the damage was done. Half the board resigned within a week. Cheryl went completely silent, reportedly moving out of state after selling her house below market value. But Tyler, he was just getting started. He used his gate earnings to make subtle but impactful upgrades to his property: a solar shed for tools and equipment, a newly paved turnaround loop that included a small pull-off lane, 4 food trucks. Once a month, he invited locals to park on the road, scan a free FairPass code, and enjoy Gate Days, a community event with snacks, vendors, and live music near the fence line. Locals started calling it the payback picnic. The irony: half of Willowbrook showed up anyway, laughing, smiling, eating churros just 20 feet from the gate that had once divided them. Tyler didn't charge for entry, just food. All profits went to local animal shelters and the volunteer fire department. That goodwill, it earned him headlines. The local paper ran a front-page feature, "From Fence Fight to Fundraiser: How One Man Turned HOA Drama into Community Gold." That story went viral. Soon, other towns were asking for interviews. HOA watch forums lit up. Real estate blogs started, citing Drive Right Solutions as a model for handling access disputes without lawsuits. And all the while, Tyler stayed calm, quiet, and profitable. He never gloated, never rubbed salt in Cheryl's wounds. He didn't need to, because he'd built something she could never touch: respect. From his community, from strangers, even from some former HOA board members who started apologizing via email. Tyler McMillan had seen enough victories to know that success breeds enemies. But what he didn't expect was that the next attack would come not from the HOA, but from someone who had once pretended to be his friend: Greg Malton. Greg had been one of the quieter Willowbrook board members during Cheryl Brinkman's reign, kept to himself, voted with the majority, nodded along during meetings but rarely spoke. After Cheryl's downfall, Greg quietly stepped off the board and vanished into the background. At least, that's what Tyler thought until his email server flagged an unusual access request. Someone had attempted to brute force login credentials to the backend of the FairPass site, not once, but 67 times over the course of 4 nights. The IP was masked, but Tyler's cousin Noah noticed the pattern. The hacker wasn't trying to break FairPass, they were trying to poison it, insert false records, fabricate access logs, maybe even delete passholder data. Tyler filed a quiet report with county cybercrime. The site was locked tighter than ever. Then, 2 weeks later, someone spray-painted "Road Robber" across his private gate in blood-red paint. That night, Tyler didn't sleep. He installed new perimeter cameras and infrared motion sensors. Noah reinforced the digital firewalls. 3 days after the vandalism, the sheriff's office came knocking, but not for Tyler. They had a warrant, and they were heading straight to Greg Malton's house. What they uncovered blew the whole situation wide open. Greg had been quietly collecting emails, HOA payment records, and neighborhood data without authorization. He wasn't just targeting Tyler, he was trying to build a shadow version of FairPass, one that would undercut Tyler's system and restore HOA control of the back road. The motive. Greed. Greg had approached 3 other HOAs in secret, offering alternative private gate software for a flat fee. He promised them escape from Tyler's licensing, but in reality, he was using pirated code from Noah's system and rebranding it as his own. County investigators seized his computer. The stolen code was a match. So were screenshots showing Greg in a group chat named Freethegate, filled with angry residents and ex-board members, trying to undermine Tyler's contract. The fallout was immediate. Willowbrook Estates issued a public statement condemning Greg's actions. 3 more HOAs that had considered signing with him instead turned to rewrote solutions, this time, without hesitation. Tyler, again, didn't gloat, but he did take action. Using the PR storm, he worked with a local councilwoman to host a community workshop titled, Know Your Rights, How to Protect Your Land from HOA Overreach. It sold out in 2 days. Attendees came from 4 different counties. Some were small landowners, like Tyler. Others were developers, farmers, or people who'd been quietly bullied by their own neighborhood boards. And the best part, the workshop was sponsored by the county's planning department. They'd taken notice too, because when they reviewed the HOA's past fence project, the one that started all of this, they discovered something far more serious. Multiple missing permit filings, illegal trenching near a protected wetland, and unauthorized use of county-owned gravel for the fence space. The county launched a formal investigation into Willowbrook Estates' entire building history for the past 5 years. Tyler didn't have to lift a finger. The HOA had dug its own grave literally, by building on ground they didn't understand and trying to control what they didn't own. Meanwhile, Tyler's revenue doubled. His drive-right system was now being pitched to real estate agents as a property value enhancer. Communities were starting to view private access tools as a perk, not a punishment. Tyler had officially gone from rogue landowner to regional consultant, and the gate, still standing, still spotless, still earning by now. Tyler McMillan had made peace with the irony. A steel fence built out of arrogance had turned into the steel backbone of a growing business empire. Fairpass was humming. Drive-right Solutions had grown from a software prototype to a full-service company with national interest, and the HOA that once mocked him, drowning in bad press, legal bills, and internal rebellion. But Willowbrook Estates wasn't finished. Not yet. One final Hail Mary remained. A group of stubborn residents, led by a man named Rick Danner, a former corporate attorney turned neighborhood watchdog, filed a petition with the city zoning board. Their claim, that the newly updated easement agreement between Tyler and the HOA violated local accessibility ordinances and created an unfair financial burden on residents. Their goal was simple: have the easement revoked entirely. If they succeeded, Tyler's contract would be void, his gate would have to be removed, and access to his road would revert to public right-of-way, meaning free for all. It was risky, reckless, and for them, it was the last bullet in the chamber. But what they didn't know, Tyler had already seen it coming. Months ago, during the zoning review process, he'd done something brilliant. Something so subtle that not even Cheryl in her most power-hungry days would have caught it. He'd negotiated with the Planning Commission to reclassify a small sliver of his back acreage as commercial mixed-use under a special permit. It wasn't much less than an acre, but it happened to include the exact stretch of road that led from Willowbrook's rear exit to the rest of Tyler's land. Why? Because commercial property with private access rights was governed by an entirely different set of municipal rules. In short, they couldn't touch him. When the zoning board hearing came around, Rick and his group made their case. Passionate speeches, accusations of toll tyranny, even a slideshow featuring blurry photos of kids stuck behind the gate during a minor traffic delay. Then Tyler stepped up. Clean-shaven, wearing boots and a blazer, he submitted a binder to every board member containing zoning maps, traffic studies, security logs, and most importantly, the county's formal approval of the commercial overlay. He spoke for less than 3 minutes. This isn't about a gate, he said. It's about property, responsibility, and yes, profit. Because if someone's going to benefit from this road, it should be the person who built it, maintains it, and owns it. Silence. Then the board chair flipped through the documents, looked up at Rick's group, and delivered the final verdict. Mr. McMillan's property use is in full compliance. Petition denied. It was over. Tyler didn't gloat, didn't fist pump, he simply shook hands, thanked the board, and walked out into the sun. But it didn't end there. Within days, more HOAs came knocking, not to fight, but to sign up. They realized something. FairPass wasn't just about controlling a road. It was about protecting rights and giving property owners leverage in a world that often ignored them. Tyler expanded operations. He hired 2 part-time staffers, brought Noah in as CTO full-time, launched a podcast for landowners called Lines in the Dirt. By year's end, FairPass operated in 4 states, and as for Willowbrook, their new board president sent Tyler a Christmas card. Inside was a gift card to a barbecue joint and a handwritten note. "You were right. We were wrong. Thanks for holding the line." Tyler pinned it on his fridge. On the anniversary of the first gate install, he hosted another payback picnic, this time with a live band, fire pits, and food trucks from 3 counties. The mayor even stopped by and shook Tyler's hand from behind the gate that once divided them. Tyler looked over the crowd and grinned. All of this because one thought they could win with a fence. Turns out, they didn't just lose the fight. They paved the road to his empire. Call to action. If you enjoyed Tyler's story and want more wild HOA showdowns, landowner triumphs, and clever comebacks, hit that subscribe button now. Don't forget to like, comment your favorite part, and tell us what would you do if an HOA tried to steal your land.